She's a liar. Always has been. Dad told my fiancé 14 days before our wedding she has a secret child. Mom whispered, don't let her trap you too. I didn't argue. I just sat there until my fiancé stood up, opened a photo on his phone, and asked, is this the child? It was. My parents had been waiting for a moment like this for years. I just didn't know it until the invitation arrived. Cream envelope, my mother's handwriting, dinner at the house, Saturday the 14th, 6 o'clock. My fiancé read it over my shoulder and said it seemed nice. I told him it wasn't. My parents had never fully accepted him. When we first got together, my mother called him charming in a tone that meant she thought he was hiding something. My father asked twice about his income. They smiled at family dinners and said nothing directly mean, but you could feel it. That low-level disapproval that never quite switched off. I figured this was another attempt to find something wrong with him. I didn't guess they'd decided to blow the whole thing up. I told him on the drive over, whatever they say tonight, just know I've told you everything. He nodded, kept his eyes on the road, said he knew. The house looked the same as it always did. Porch light on, my mother's garden trimmed along the walkway. Everything neat, everything controlled. Inside, the good china was out, the kind she only used when she wanted someone to feel like a guest instead of family. Pot roast in the center of the table. My father in his pressed button down. They made small talk through the salad, asked about the venue, the guest list. My fiancé answered politely. I moved food around my plate and waited. I could feel it coming the way you feel a storm before the sky changes. Something too careful about my father refilling his water glass. Something too bright about my mother's smile. Then my dad set his fork down. He told my fiancé I had a baby at 19 and gave her away. Said I'd been hiding it. Said I couldn't be trusted. My fiancé didn't move. Just set his fork down and asked my father to continue. So my dad did. Said the father didn't know. Said I was running around with multiple men. My mother nodded the whole time like she was confirming details she'd reluctantly verified. She touched my fiancé's hand and said she thought he deserved to know before he made a mistake he couldn't undo. I sat completely still. I didn't interrupt, didn't cry, didn't look at my fiancé because I didn't need to. I had told him everything 8 months earlier. The pregnancy at 19, my parents pulling me out of school, the adoption I didn't choose, the letters the adoptive family sent in the first 2 years that my mother collected from the mailbox and threw away. He knew all of it. What he hadn't told me was that he'd done something about it. About a year into our relationship, he'd started asking quiet questions. Did I ever think about trying to find her? Whether I knew anything about the family? I always said no. Closed adoption, there's no door to knock on. He never pushed. I thought that was him being supportive. 6 months before the wedding, he mentioned he'd done a DNA test, ancestry thing. Some argument with his father about whether they were actually Scottish. I didn't think much of it. What he didn't tell me was that 3 months later, he got a notification. A close family match. A child, 8 years old, born in August, in our state. He confirmed it before saying anything. Found the adoptive family through public records. Reached out through someone in adoption reunion work. The adoptive parents had been trying to find me for years. They'd sent letters through the agency. My mother intercepted everyone. They'd assumed I didn't want contact. They were wrong. By the time my parents sat down to detonate our engagement, my fiancé had already met our daughter 4 times. My dad finished talking, pushed his plate back like he'd done the hard thing and deserved to rest. My mother folded her hands. They both looked at my fiancé, waiting for the reaction they'd built the whole night around. He was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up his phone, found what he was looking for, slid it across the table. Is this the child? My father looked down. My mother leaned in. It was her, 8 years old, dark curls, standing between me and my fiancé in front of a playground, all 3 of us grinning. My fiancé had his hand on her shoulder, looking at the camera like a man who had already decided how the rest of his life was going to go. My mother's face did something I don't have a clean word for. Not just surprise. It was the specific expression of someone who builds a trap and watches the other person walk around it entirely. She started to say something. My fiancé cut her off. He said, we've been meeting her for 2 months. The adoptive family tried to reach her for years. You made sure they couldn't. We have the documentation. He stood up. I stood up. We left a pot roast on the table.